Director, if you'd like to kick us off, take us away.
Can do, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to everybody. It is June 19th at 9 a.m. sharp. I will do a quick roll call for a quorum, understanding that there's probably a few still funneling in. Commissioner Meyer?
Here.
Commissioner Racines? I think we'll expect her online in a few.
Yeah, we'll keep track.
Commissioner Naves?
Boy, these guys weren't raised in Wyoming. They'd have been here half an hour ago.
I think we'll expect her online momentarily as well. Commissioner Pope?
Here.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Commissioner Revel?
I think he's excused.
Excused. And Chairman Gordon?
I'm here.
Mr. Chairman?
Anthony, I'm here.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Naves. So, Mr. Chairman, you do have a quorum.
Very good. Well, please proceed.
Great. Thank you. So I will read our quick announcements and disclaimers. So first and foremost, sign-in sheets are outside the entrance to the room. Please sign in if you are here in person. And then for my disclaimer, key decisions pertaining to the Wyoming Stable Token Initiative will be made by the commissioners of the Stable Token Commission or the state legislature in public meetings such as this. Further, the only commissioners are those appointed by statute, the governor, or a majority vote of the commission. At this time, the Frontier Stable Token issued by the Commission, also called the FRNT or Front Token, is now available for purchase by the public on Kraken, a Wyoming domiciled cryptocurrency exchange. A link to the listing page for Front is on our website's homepage. The Front Token has been deployed on mainnet Arbitrum, Avalanche, Base, Ethereum, Hedera, Optimism, Polygon, and Solana blockchains, and smart contract addresses are published on the Commission's website. Any centralized exchange claiming to sell or distribute Front or Wyoming stable tokens besides Kraken should be considered fraudulent. Caution is advised for users looking to source Front from decentralized exchanges. Please do not attempt to purchase tokens from unauthorized sources. Information outside of these meetings should only be considered factual and legitimate if it is distributed through our official channels. At this time, these are limited to our website at stabletoken.wyo.gov, the Wyoming Legislature website at wyoleg.gov, and our social media channels with the @WyoStable username on Twitter or X, YouTube, GitHub, and Warpcast. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I can quickly review today's agenda before we get started.
That would be good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we'll have our typical slate of updates and approvals, including meeting minutes, our monthly budget review, update on where we are with rulemaking for reserves and token management amendments, and we'll do a very brief stable token industry update this morning. That will be followed by the Q2 2026 blockchain selection exercise. It is a quarterly process. We are in month 3, so that'll be our final assessment memo. We'll then review the Wyoming Digital Asset Authority bill that has been put forth by LSO following what would have been the select committee meetings earlier this week that have now been postponed. We'll review the commission operating structure transition memo, discuss a couple of next steps, and then review the upcoming meetings and events, followed by public comment. Any questions on this morning's agenda?
Any questions? I don't hear any, so please proceed.
Can do, Mr. Chairman. So the first thing you'll have in front of you are the minutes from our last meeting, which was STC-037 on May 21st, 2026. I am happy to review these at the 10,000-foot level, or the commission can move towards accepting these as is. And I will also note, Mr. Chairman, we do have Commissioner Racines is also online.
That's great to see you. Thank you, Commissioner Racines.
Thank you. Sorry, I was on the public link for a while.
Well, we're glad you're here now. Thanks. I think everybody's had a chance to review the minutes. Members of the board, if there is any doubt there, please reveal it. But if not, you've had a chance to read them. If there are any corrections or additions, I would entertain those now. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those are approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up is our monthly budget review. As usual, you have two cuts of this in front of you. We'll defer to the summary, which is the much more legible version, now on a whopping 2 pages. So this is for our spend as of May 31st. So as usual, the 100 series is a key driver of our monthly spend that has been static since the beginning of this year. And again, we continue to just monitor the benefits for any kind of increase in Social Security, which kicked off at the beginning of the calendar year. But since then, no updates. So that is a static line item. No in-state travel for the team in May, nor any travel for the commissioners. We did have some out-of-state travel for Stephanie Chan, our Senior Business Project Management Analyst, who was in Florida for, broadly speaking, the Consensus Conference, but she also had speaking roles at HederaCon, the Hedera blockchain, and Solana Accelerate. So that was 3 different conferences in one, but that is the out-of-state line item there. Moving down to the 200 series, you have our standard $402 line item there for our monthly charges. Those include the payments for social media, including X, Notion for project management, Zoom for these types of calls, and other software as a service platforms. No additions this month. In the past few months, we've had renewals on Adobe, renewals on Microsoft. So this is kind of the baseline item, and I'm glad to be back down at that level. In terms of the 400 series, we typically have a $260-ish charge for IT services and a $210 charge for telecom services, just based on some timing differentials with those invoices from ETS. Those did not make it onto May, so we expect to see those charges in June. And then for professional services, we are running a bit hot in this sector, but we did expect that for both IT services from Inca Digital, our OSINT provider, and on the financial services, which is the network firm, our audit and attest partner. Those are kind of the standard monthly fees. With attorney services, you'll see that's the fee for Paul Hastings. That includes a lot of net new work after it was been static for a little bit. This is where we've kicked off some work on investigations of things like yield-bearing stable tokens and what that would entail. We've talked about it plenty in these meetings, but as we've referred to before, it's kind of a longer initiative to figure out how that would fit not only within a federal framework, but also a state framework. So we're making sure we're doing our diligence there. And we're also looking to make sure we continuously monitor and continuously assess our posture around compliance, things like the Bank Secrecy Act, their applicability to us as a commission, and what is changing rapidly at the federal level with rulemaking around the Genius Act. So I'll note it now rather than the stable token update segment, but there is significant rulemaking efforts going on with the OCC, the Treasury, FINRA. So while those things may or may not be applicable to us, we always want to continue. We want to make that assessment first and foremost, but also make sure that even if we deviate in some way, shape, or form, we are looking at those regulations and rules to determine best practices. And of course, this is very much the live version of it, where it's not necessarily a static rule set right now, but it's a 60-day rulemaking period from the Treasury, the OCC. So that means we're looking at the guidance that's coming out, the NPRMs, the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. We're looking at the responses that come in, whether they're from the digital asset industry and some pushback from the banking side of things, because we are trying to kind of play in both worlds. And whatever those final results are and the manifestations, we're paying attention to all of that. So there's a bit of an uptick there, but we've also kind of increased the scope of what is being assessed on a monthly basis with that line item. And the last one, which is the big one, this is our full fee for Ernst & Young LLP's engagement for internal controls. So now that we've built out the entire foundation for the first stable token in our Frontier stable token, we've brought in an external third party that was part of the original slate of RFPs to look at everything we've built so far and determine where we can automate controls, enhance controls, or may want to have future controls based on the assumed or proposed future initiatives of this commission. So bit of a heftier line item there, but it is for several months of work amongst the Ernst & Young team to make sure that, again, similar to the legal line item, that we're maintaining a very, very strong compliance posture here. Before I get into the kind of the final numbers, any questions on those particular line items?
Are there any questions? I do have sort of a technical piece and I'm just curious, Director, how, I mean, I think how are we participating with the statewide cost allocation? Is that, there's this SWICAP piece that's in the budget. Are we being billed for the services that we are getting, like just the regular IT and all that sort of stuff? Because it looks to me like we also have outside subscription services, and I want to make sure we're not getting double charged in some way.
Excellent question, Mr. Chairman, and one that is pertinent for our discussion a little bit about the transition memo, the operating structure. So we do get billed, I could have swore those were off, I apologize. We do get billed by ETS for the specific things that they provide on our behalf. So that is going to include, for example, the telecom charges. So that's our cell phones, 5 cell phones, monthly fees for those, plus an administrative fee for that. In the IT services, that line item that wasn't there this month, and in the prior month we had discussed, we had received essentially 8 months of charges in 1 month. That's for our SSL certificates, so giving us a secure website. That's for the cloud services that we use. So all of those things that come directly from ETS are things we get charged for directly. I do believe in terms of the general SWICAP posture, we did have a charge earlier this year in regards to the room and board, the rent for our office. So that had already been handled. And then I will note just in regards to the other kind of line items that we have, we do go through the OCIO process. We have to go through ETS to approve those specific software packages if we want any kind of bolt-ons. But what you see in that 200 series line item, those are all things that are discrete and distinct from what's being provided by ETS or others. So the reason, for example, you have that the uptick in March and April, that was for, again, Adobe, the PDF system, and for Microsoft Office Suite. Those are provided through ETS invoicing as well. So that's why we go through that process, and that's why those appeared there. But really the only thing I would think would be a bit of a, 2 things where there's a little bit of overlap. OpenAI, we do have a kind of the state converting to Gemini. So we've been looking at, it's only $20 a month for that particular subscription, but we're looking at winding that down. And then with Zoom, we use that for these meetings specifically rather than Google Meet for kind of the executive sessions or things like that. That's about $99 a month. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to quickly wrap up, commission expenses to date are therefore $704 dollars of the $5.8 million appropriated to the commission, or roughly 74% of the total allocated budget. And that includes now pretty much the big vendor charges. We're pretty much square there. The commission therefore has a remaining budget of $1,518,296 for the remainder of BFY 25, which is 1 more month. So with all of our vendors all in, plus the team over the last 2 years and everything we've worked on, we've spent about 75% of the budget, right? And then again, some of that is in stable tokens that we've purchased ourselves that are essentially the agency's own money. We've talked about that in several of our last meetings. I just want to flag that. And that is essentially another asset we have. It looks an expense because this is generated from Wolves, which is the state's budget reporting system, but that is where we are at. And I don't think there's anything else I wanted to call out in the detailed spreadsheet, but you have that if you want to see that again on a more line item by line item basis. So I once again pause there for any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Pope.
Thank you, Director Apollo, and I'm glad that you noted for the record the miscellaneous $667,000 line item, that is truly an asset and would be recorded as such under a GAAP system. But because we're dealing with Wolves, it's recorded as an expense. But just a quick question on the Ernst & Young contract. What's the expected duration of that contract?
So through the chair, Commissioner Pope, we are expecting to be done and have a full controls matrix with risk scores, risk weights that cover everything from the tech side, the legal side, the operational side, the financial side. That is all expected to be done by, I believe, July 17th.
Thank you. Great. Thank you.
And then, Mr. Chairman, we'll have the microphone open in response to Commissioner Pope's comment. It's not on the agenda, but two things we discussed along the way. We did have our daily reserves go online. So that is something that I was flagged as flowing as intended. We went through that, an actual demonstration of that in our last meeting. So we are still every day reporting our Frontier stable token in circulation and the reserve that are backing it. And then on the GAP versus GASB side of things, or GASB versus FASB side of things, again, we'll get to a little bit more of it in that operating structure discussion. But the expectation is we'll be next month will probably be the last month of looking at just the expenses, and then we'll be fully transitioned to here's the financial statements on a month-to-month basis for everything that's going through, not only the agency as an expense, but also bringing in what's happening on chain, the interest income being generated that's being captured at Franklin at Fiduciary Trust, which is our custodian. So we'll have a more robust and equilibrated version of our budget going forward from there.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions? All right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on quickly to our next topic, which is the rulemaking update. So this will be a quick verbal one. So we did publish our public notice and comment for rulemaking on May 29th. That covers two different sets of rules. That is the reserves management and the token management rule sets. Both of those are required to maintain statutory conformance. So with the amendments to the Stable Token Act from the legislature earlier this year, there was a change for, as an example, to the flow of funds, right? So when interest income starts being generated and comes back to the agency, it's not over collateralized first. It goes down to pay down the obligations of the agency, followed by over collateralization as an example. So those amendments precipitated a review and update of our rules. The commission reviewed and approved those updates for the initial public notice and comment period. So again, we got all those documents pushed live by May 29th. The public comment period is then complete on July 13th at 5 p.m. I will note for anyone in the audience who's listening who's interested in providing comment on those rules, that they are linked from our homepage. There are forms available in Notion where we capture that on a chapter by chapter basis. And I will note that this is the first time we are doing amendments to any of our rules. So what we've done on recommendation from the SOS, particularly around their Wyoming Administrative Reporting Rules System, which is called WARS, we've put every chapter into WARS individually for any kind of response or forward momentum. And what that really means is we have all four chapters of our reserves rules have some amendment in them. Some are more substantive than others, but those are up there. Whereas our token management rules, which are 6 chapters, only have chapters 1 and 6 up for discussion. And hypothetically, if there was significant substantive comment on chapter 6, but there was not on chapter 1, by bifurcating those in the WAR system, we can move forward with amendments to chapter 1. But if we need to go back and continue do another round on chapter 6, for example, we now have a much broader ability to do that rather than trying to bring through the whole package at one time. Happy to, if that was not eloquent as an explanation, happy to take another stab at it. But this is, again, the first time we are going through the amendment process for rules. So I just wanted to make sure, and I'm still learning this on a bit myself, so I wanted to make sure all of our commissioners were appraised of that path forward.
Are there any comments or questions about that? There are none. And then just to sort of finish that off the process, then once the rules are done, commented to, you've had a chance to reply. They'll go to management committee, then they'll come to the Attorney General and ultimately to me. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further comments on that. We will quickly go to our stable token industry update. And again, I've already talked about the rulemaking a bit, so we'll keep this super quick. Aggregate market cap of stable tokens has now dropped a little bit. So typically it's been over the $300 billion threshold for the last few months and kind of stayed there. We're at 297 now. There's been a bit of a shakeout and some additional volatility in the cryptocurrency sector. Typically when we see volatility in the price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, or other cryptocurrencies, we'll see a flight to stable coins because they are much more stable and keeps your money in the system. But we've seen some of the actual dollars kind of shake out of the ecosystem at this point. And the hypothesis that I've seen, and I personally subscribe to for that, was we recently had the SpaceX IPO, and a lot of the noise is that people were pulling their money out of crypto and the system and to put it into that investment. So we'll keep monitoring this. Again, stable tokens, generally speaking, down from, I think, 308 last month to 297 now. It's not the biggest shakeout, but generally speaking, there has been it is a bit of a bear market on the broader sector. Again, that's not completely relevant to us, but I do like to provide the full picture here of what's happening.
Interest rates went up too. That usually drives stable. I mean, the crypto and the gold and the precious metals down, and the discussion is maybe it's going to keep going up because of the 4.2% print on inflation. So there's going to be some shakeouts, I think.
Please go ahead. Thank you, Commissioner Munn.
Yep. And then beyond that, just one thing I want to flag is the industry update. Typically, we talk about, the big domestic, international piece. We are, from the international side of things, going to do a more formal revisitation of our international framework review. So when our Chief Risk and Compliance Officer, Deborah Brooks, came on board, the first thing she did, hit the ground running, was look at all of the international frameworks that had existed at that time around stablecoins. Genius was not a thing yet. So we didn't really have a domestic framework, but included in, I think, 16 different jurisdictions, you had the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, the Japan Financial Services Agency. I believe New York DFS was in there because they were doing guidance previously on stables and they were the main regulator. So all that to say is, with all the motility happening at the federal level that we've been tracking pretty closely, that the US's momentum here has now prompted other jurisdictions to do significant rework or initial work on their posture. So South Korea, we see moving forward towards their kind of V1 of stablecoin regulation. Japan and the JFSA are revisiting a kind of one of the longer standing frameworks. And I noted that the ECB and the Bank of England both are coming to the realization that they perhaps had a overly restrictive posture, and this technology is not going away. So they are also revisiting their respective frameworks. So again, we don't need to necessarily comply with either of those. Not the point I'm making, but we do, as the one public entity in the world with a stable token, it does behoove us to be good citizens and be aware of what's happening abroad. So we'll be doing a bit more of a deeper dive on that in the next few weeks. And then one other note I want to make is about some of the other states. Maryland and Delaware have now both instantiated their own blockchain task force, right? So we had the blockchain task force start in the state of Wyoming several years ago, which then became the select committee and has evolved over time. Other states are now catching up. So we've spoken to the team that has been, it was an independent team that's now been folded into the Maryland blockchain task force. We'll be speaking with them over a couple of days in July. I testified in front of the Delaware blockchain task force on Friday of last week. The New Hampshire Stable Token Study Commission continues to meet on a monthly basis. So we're paying attention to all of that. But now we're also seeing some more restrictive frameworks come out as well. So just this last week in Illinois, Governor Pritzker signed a bill that would put a 0.2% transaction fee on all cryptocurrency and digital asset transactions, which I would, again, personally describe as highly punitive, to the extent where if I took my Anthony's Frontier stable tokens and shift them from my cold storage wallet, where I'm keeping essentially a savings account, and then put it in my hot wallet so I could spend it more readily, let's say through the Rain card or other applications we're integrated with, that would hit me with a 0.2% tax just to move my money from, my funds from left pocket to right pocket. And I also believe, although I didn't confirm this by looking at the bill yet, I do believe it's also a tax on crypto at rest. So if you are simply holding digital assets, you will be taxed on those as well. So as other states get involved in the technology, it's not all going to be great news. But I think it's a point I wanted to bring up because it is a testament to the work that this state has done to make sure that we're always thinking of our end users and our citizens and our constituents first, rather than succumbing to potentially pressure and things like that to make more punitive rules.
That is jurisdictional. I mean, you'd have to be in that jurisdiction or have your wallet registered there or something. So, I guess maybe our task force should look at offering a safe haven, and that might help us.
Mr. Chairman, that the safe haven may be a bit above my pay grade, but I will say, and you brought up a good point, which is the operational side of this. I don't know unless you're on an exchange, unless your funds are on a digital asset exchange that is registered in the state and tied to your address. If you are simply self-custodying your own crypto from when you lived in a different state 5 years ago, I don't know how they would even do it unless you're self-reporting it, which I guess you would have to if you wanted to be compliant with the Illinois Department of Financial Services, but Illinois. So we'll see how it shakes out. There's been a lot of pushback from some of the policy groups. The Digital Chamber, the Blockchain Association have put out, letters kind of pushing back on, what's fair. And again, anecdotally, I am in the bubble, but my social media is a lot of people who are in the space. There's a non-zero number of people and companies leaving the state of Illinois now as a result of this.
Yeah, it's interesting if you talk to Related Digital, which is just built or in the process of building a data farm here. They were asked specifically by J.D. Pritzker why they aren't building in Illinois, and I think we kind of can see why.
Perhaps, Mr. Chairman, perhaps. That's what I wanted to share for today's industry update. Any questions on that?
I don't see any particular questions. I don't know if any of the other commissioners have any other observations or any of our staff. Hearing none, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So next up is our blockchain selection exercise. You should have 2 documents in front of you. And I will quickly flag to my team that there is some timing sensitivity about posting these documents online, because if we're bringing new blockchains on, we don't want to front run price action. So I would ask that if it's not already up, now would be the time to get those pushed public. But what is in front of you is our blockchain selection exercise Q2 2026 final assessment memo. As the reminder I always give for this section of our conversation, on the quarterly process, essentially month 1 is reviewing the criteria that we use to look at the different networks. I will note in this particular quarter, we didn't update any of the criteria, but we did add kind of a concept, which is the concept of a partner blockchain. As I said, when we were talking about it, that's more of a future proofing than anything we were rushing to do. So we took not 1, but 2 months to discuss that. And we did approve that concept at the last meeting, which you could see on the bottom of page 2, top of page 3. And the rest of it's just kind of background information. But again, no partner blockchains being brought on with any immediacy, but just that concept does exist. So again, month 1 is the criteria. Month 2 is the preliminary assessment, where we take in data from blockchain developers, foundations, whoever are these kind of representatives in a given decentralized space, give us information about that particular chain's performance, and if there's any kind of technical movement on a month-to-month basis. And then our 3rd month of the exercise is an independent review and scoring of those networks that pass our binary criteria. And to that extent, we did have 2 blockchains that reached out for evaluation in our 2nd month. Preliminary evaluation indicated that one would pass the binaries, the other one would not. Then we went and did our kind of in-depth review of the data and pull that in on our side. And you could see that in the 2nd sheet you have, which is our report on the 2 blockchains that we're talking about. But following the review of the data provided, following the independent review that our team performed, we determined that both Monad and Tempo passed our binary criteria, inclusive of vendor support. And then the threshold the commission has put forth in prior meetings was if the blockchain scores more than 50% of the total points available in our scoring exercise, we would move them into a position of a candidate blockchain. Doesn't mean we're deploying on it tomorrow, but we could put them in the stack of things to deploy the Frontier stable token on, or any Wyoming stable tokens on, as we move forward from a technical perspective. So right now, the total amount of available points is 41. These two blockchains, Monad and Tempo, Monad scored 24, Tempo scored 21, both exceeding that threshold. So our agency's position is that we should ratify both Monad and Tempo as candidate blockchains on which Wyoming stable tokens may be deployed in the future. And if that is to the agreement of the commission, we would notify the first party resources that we've been speaking with on those respective platforms to see how we can move forward with them. We'll publish the results of our blockchain selection exercise to the public commission website, and then we'll get started on doing our Q3 exercise. So again, we don't need to go through it in detail, but the commission has in front of it is a version of our scoring metrics for both Monad and Tempo. This is a bit more legible. They give you an Excel spreadsheet, so it looks a little bit different than it was last time. But you can see a summary of the binaries, the scoring rubric, additional benefits, any kind of concerns or deductions, and all of the data there. Happy to dive into this, but we'll leave that to the commission and happy to answer any questions on the review here.
Are there any questions, any views? Appreciate, Director, the exercise and the way you've gone through it. I have a methodology question, which is just there's a numeric score attributed to each of the particular issues.
Mm-hmm.
Have you also qualified that so that we don't have a 10 in one and a 1 in the other, and a 2 and an 8 or something like that you can skew data?
So, Mr. Chairman, excellent question and good point that we didn't embed the scoring rubric in here. But if you recall back from October of 2024, that's when the initial rubric was put forth, was ratified by the commission, and that continues that has lived and continues to live on our website as a separate, its own kind of document. I will note that while we have added some criteria, we have not changed any criteria. We do look at that, transaction speed, transaction finality, total value locked, i.e. the number of value on a chain. So we do look at them every month, but we haven't had any differences since. And those scores for additional benefits go from, I believe, 0 to 3. 0 to 3.
2.
On step 2 scoring. Yeah. Thank you. So that is one excellent thing to keep in mind, and thank you to Stephanie Chan. When you have the initial scoring on things like network stability, it goes from 0 to 3. And then with additional benefits, additional concerns, it goes from 0 to 2 for additional benefits, or for additional concerns, 0 to -2, or including an immediate disqualification if there's any kind of criminality that we find or founders went to jail. And that has, there are chains that have been excised from this process because of that. But we've kept those rubrics the same, and we've kept it fairly consistent from, again, 1 to 3 or, 0 to 2. So you don't have such a spread that if any chain has numbers that are exponentially better in one specific category out of dozens, that they're going to get by on just that one metric.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Mr.
Mr.
Just a little information follow up there on the scoring on the rubrics there. Do you have a list, or can you supply a list of what thresholds are before people get points on that, and how that goes up when you get say maybe more transactions per second or total active users or whatever, just so we know when we have this, we know what they have to get 1 point or some more. So I don't need it now, just would like to have that one. You probably already supplied it someplace, and if you have, that's fine, but if you could do it again, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So through the chair, Commissioner Meyer, if you would to take a look to your left, what Stephanie is currently pulling up is our website, which might take a little longer to load. We are in the basement. But just very quickly, if you go to the Stable Token website and go to blockchain selection exercise, we have an entire page that dictates the history of what we've built out. And then the blockchain selection criteria are there. And this is updated since our last month when we updated the partner blockchain concept.
Okay.
So if you were to scroll down from here, you can see the binaries, you can see the scoring rubrics, network stability, things like that. Again, I know we can't really read it right now, but all of this is just hosted public on our website, and we can send you the link for that.
You do exactly what I do. I tell people it's all on the website, just visit it.
That way I can hand wave everything, right? Yes, but it's all there. And we did, again, update the underlying PDF since our discussion and the partner blockchain concept that we put forth last month. So that is updated as of this quarter.
Very good. Thank you. Further questions or comments? Color? Director, anything before I ask for a motion on these?
I do not believe anything else from my side.
Okay.
Thank you.
So members of the commission, you have two new blockchains to consider that have gone through the blockchain selection exercise. I think you've seen the metrics that have been proposed. And so I would entertain a motion if you think either Tempo or Monad or both should be included.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Pope.
I move to approve the addition of Monad and Tempo as candidate blockchains on which WIST may be launched in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Pope. Is there support for, that's been seconded by Commissioner Meyer. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Nays? That motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, we will move on to our next topic, which is the Wyoming Digital Asset Authority Bill. So just again, to provide a bit of context, there was intended to be a 2-day meeting of the select committee earlier this week, Monday, Tuesday, up in Sheridan. That was canceled late last week. So that came off the docket. That being said, when those meetings are published, the materials for those meetings is made public. One of those was the working draft version 0.6 of the Wyoming Digital Asset Authority Bill, sponsored by the Select Committee on Blockchain. So it is a fairly substantive bill. It's 29 pages long. I will note that does include some staff comment in there, because this is a working document. I will also note that it says draft only, not approved for introduction. To be very clear, that's introduction to the legislature, right? So this is, again, a public document, not that we can't introduce it in this kind of forum. Based on the scope of this bill, we did have a commissioner ask if we could discuss it amongst this group because it does have an impact on the Stable Token Commission's operations. So at the highest level, what this bill does would be create a Wyoming Digital Asset Authority that would be separate from the stable token, but kind of linked to it by the members of the board and the team that would be assigned to each, which is to say it would be the same team, right? So essentially the Digital Asset Authority would subsume the Stable Token Commission while also trying to preserve the Stable Token Commission's independence. So we would have a meeting much like this, where it would be the Digital Asset Authority. We'd have to end one session, quorum into a Stable Token Commission meeting with the exact same board, the exact same agency resources, and then take on any kind of responsibility to the Stable Token Commission in a separate segment. I did provide, I'm happy to review this, just to go through kind of section by section and let everyone know what's in here. I do not expect there to be any.
Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, why don't you just change commission to authority and add the the differences that an authority has rather than the commission. Because if they're all the same people, it just seems like a pretty cumbersome way to move forward.
Yeah, and let me,
Mr. Chairman.
before we get too far down this
Yeah.
path, let me just ask, have people had a chance to review this? Do you want Anthony to kind of go through it, or I'm happy to go into a discussion because if that's appropriate, because I think there are some big mistakes in this bill.
I think this is a draft, definitely.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I do note that Commissioner Navas has a hand up.
Commissioner Navis and then
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Anthony. Yeah, thank you, Governor. Yes, I asked for a discussion about this. I agree with you that the bill as proposed includes many sections that need to be clarified and could be actually contradictory. Expanded power with lack of clarity on boundaries and everything else. So in consultation with the team, I asked Anthony to put this matter before the commission today for a discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Navis, and Commissioner Pope. And, I come back to we can go through the whole bill draft, but I think we've all had a chance to look at it. But anyway, go ahead, Commissioner Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have been an advocate for this type of bill for the last couple of years. The bill or the state needs two things. It needs a body that will regulate and administer digital assets throughout the state beyond the stable token. So that's the reason for a separate body there. How we get to that point, I'm not. I think we hash it out and we make corrections to the bill, and we do it in a way that is that is smart and doesn't create problems. But we also need a separate stable token commission still to administer the trust and the operations of the stable token itself, because the funds are held in a trust. It needs a board and commission to manage that trust as well. But when the legislature entertained a bill this last session that contained something like 60 different definitions to create within statute for digital assets. And that was unwieldy. And part of the reason for this bill is that if you have to chase those definitions as they morph and change, you'll be adding stuff to statute every year. So one of the duties will be to write rules and definitions around digital assets. The second duty would be that the state is anticipated to look at and begin issuing other types of digital assets, real world assets that aren't stable tokens at some point down the road. And there needs to be a body that regulates those. The concept that we can essentially do both with just one commission is not workable as I see it, in that you still have to have a separate body that deals with the stable token itself and the trust that it administers. That's the thought. That's my thought behind it, and it seems to be shared by the chairman of the select committee. And the result is this very, very initial draft that we're looking at, that we all will have input into as we go along.
Thank you, Commissioner Pope. Are there other comments? Commissioner Meyer?
Mr. Chairman, I really like the way that we set up our IFC, because it takes the politics out of it. And I see that we've got the politics in here of elected officials making appointments. That's a disaster in Alaska and a lot of other states. So I'd like to, suggest strongly that we have a independent third party that first they're appointed by the elected, that's fine. Keep them in the loop, just like we do on the ISC. But then those folks have the autonomy and not the, any politics or baggage that goes along with putting together a commission that's functional.
Commissioner Pope. Thank you, Commissioner. I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I tend to agree, except I don't I guess I'm not grasping which side that independent person would be, on the stable token side or on the authority side. Because again, we've got two different bodies that we're talking about. And if it's on the stable token side, I tend to think that the structure with a body itself that that monitors it, that is, or that manages it, that then is the same body on the authority side. I don't know which side would have an independent third party that like you're talking about.
Mr. Chairman, I've got maybe a response to that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Director.
Chairman. And in response to both the dialogue between Commissioner Pope and Commissioner Meyer. So one thing to keep in mind is if you were to look at section 2 of the document, which I believe starts on page 21, and that's the additions. And then that in conjunction with section 3, which begins on page 26, sorry, page 24, which is the deletions. Essentially, Commissioner Pope, to your question about which side is, there's not going to be sides anymore. And this is, I think, some of the complexity of this bill where you'd have section, jumping between a lot of different things here, but you'd essentially remove section 40-31-103 now of the Stable Token Act, which appoints the different people, the governor or their delegate, treasurer or their delegate, auditor or their delegate, and you'd replace that wording with the commission shall be governed by a board composed of the same persons serving as the members of the Wyoming Digital Asset Authority under Wyoming Statute 40-32-102, which is what Commissioner Meyer was referring to in terms of 4 elected officials delegating or essentially assigning a delegate to the position on their behalf. So it is really only one body, even though it covers 2 things. So,
And if I may just sort of weigh in on this, but both a cautionary tale and a perceived conflict that are heightened by that. And I think it comes back to the comments I think Commissioner Pope, you said about their distinct responsibilities here. And also Commissioner Meyer, the conversation you and I've had about the benefits of being an authority as opposed to an element of the state. The cautionary tale comes from the Johnson County Commission, which decided on their own aegis that it would be a good idea to create their own public land trust. And to your point about the technical aspects of that, they continually ran into issues where they forgot to adjourn themselves as the commission, and then started taking action as the land trust, et cetera, et cetera. So there's just complications there that proved to be really complex and put a lot of liability on the county. I tend to agree that if you want a regulatory authority, you need to have that regulatory authority be somewhat distinct from politics. I mean, already we have, there were doubters that got us when we got started, and now there are people that want us to turn into some other giraffe than what we are. And I think that's just the nature of politics. So, I think when we talk about a regulatory authority, it does seem to me that there is benefits about talking about that distinct from having the same people that are doing stable token. um, operating somehow as an authority and not as an authority, but as a regulatory body. And I'm not clear, other than sort of migrating what we do to an authority, that there's much that needs to be done with that.
So-
That would be my view.
So, Mr. Chairman, in response to that, in regards to being an authority, this is something where we've discussed in the past, our structure and our current composition, particularly where we are at 103C in the Stable Token Act, structured in that very same regard, right? We're a body politic and corporate, so we already have some of that DNA. And again, we'll talk about that in a few minutes when we get to this kind of transition memo. We've looked different in the past because this was a one-person agency for a while, so it did not make sense to be operating autonomously. And I think that this is kind of, while this bill would change the moniker, there's no bright line test that I'm aware of, and we've done some diligence on this, as has LSO, as part of this exercise. There's no bright line test for an authority is this thing with this set of responsibilities, just kind of all manifest in how we're structured statutorily. And we do have that wording, similar to the Energy Authority or others. That being said, in response to the dialogue at hand, and I will say this is my personal opinion, and I have mentioned this in some of these discussions with the co-chairs, is what would probably make more sense to me, being hands-on with this, would be, a full bore conversion of the Stable Token Commission to the Wyoming Digital Asset Authority with divisions thereunder, right? Division 1, Stable Token Commission. Division 2, Real World Assets. Division 3, some kind of regulatory body that is separate and distinct to monitor the others with different personnel. Again, that would be a bit of an expansion in and of itself, but that to me would be a cleaner way to do resourcing, to do budgeting, more akin to how the process typically works. Right now, I think it's a little bit conflated, is my personal opinion.
And in response to that, Director, my sense that they are related, but they are distinct disciplines, and I would look at regulating digital assets, whatever they may be, real world or whatever, more the province of something like the banking authority. And separate and distinct. And then I agree with you. The authority could do all those other things, but you're not sort of blending ambition with responsibility. So just my view. Others may have different views.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I see the implementation of this having some problems because if you're taking away commission power, then how's that hand off to the authority, and when does that happen, and what got left behind? So I would kind of like to say, let's have some I guess I hate to say autonomy, but maybe the commission gets more like an instrumentality or an authority that has some flexibility, and then build up that third-party selection process for the commission that looks at everything else. And sure, they could, look at stable tokens are digital, so that would probably fall underneath, the commission would probably fall underneath them to a certain degree. But the normal day-to-day stuff, trying to make sure that we have separate accounting that doesn't go through the complicated wolf systems, that we have internal HR that actually is functional. You have the system where your money that you're making goes back into the process that allows for some flexibility in the budget process as assets mature, grow, the complication arises there. And if you want to have, a gatekeeper, maybe the commission might be able to maybe look at that as a gatekeeper rather than having to go through the whole legislative process, but there again, but we want to have that independence from the standpoint that we're not, I guess, restricted in the ability to do what is necessary in the business of the stable token.
And Commissioner Meyer, I would not disagree. I think, you know, the concern I have is the model that we're looking at here is similar to what Amazon does. We can directly compete with you, or you can pay us to be able to do something. That's really my.
I feel your pain, Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, one final comment from me. Well, probably not the final comment, but yeah, one additional comment. The way I look at it, there are a minimum of a dozen different ways we can accomplish this, but the core concept, I believe, remains the same. I think we have to have an overarching regulatory body that does all of the things that we've talked about. I believe the stable token is a form of digital asset, so in some way it has to fall under the authority. How we get there are, again, minimum of 10, 20, 30 ways we get there. And I think the goal of this legislation is to start the conversation. I truly believe that Director Apollo and this commission has to have significant input on the bill, because even as it is, it's flawed. And how we provide that input is critical, because it needs to be done quickly, because this legislation has to be in final format to submit to the it doesn't have to be, but for the select committee to approve it. I think the September meeting is the final meeting. October?
November. Through the chair. It'll be November. There's still an intent, to my knowledge, to have 6 days of meetings. So the rescheduling of the 2 days from this week, 2 dates in September around the Wyoming blockchain stampede towards the end of the month, and then the final 2 dates in November.
Thank you. I'm glad you know more about it than me. So that's, I think we have to, it is critical that we provide input and we help it mature as a bill in a way that our experience collectively through this process adds a lot of value to that bill and makes it a better bill.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, thank you. And Commissioner
You
Meyer.
know, there was some discussion there about when you added the other elected official, then you had an even number of people, and that might be problematic. I'm wondering what was the subject matter expertise, whatever, you know, whether it was the Secretary of State or the Superintendent of Education that came on there that actually said, boy, we just got to have this state elected official on this commission.
So
Director.
through the chair, great question. And candidly, I don't have a great answer for you. What I will say is, if you look at the staff notes, that is flagged, right? In 2 ways. One is that you have an even number of commissioners, so you can end up in a deadlock, and I'm not aware of any tiebreaker. I don't think you'd want it to be someone on the agency side of things. And I'd also note that they do, and apologies, this pages to flip through here. There is a note there that, you know, what's the rationale for having 4 of 5 elected officials and not the 5th, or keeping the same compositions we have now, which would bring us back to a odd number of resources.
Yeah.
Her commission board members.
Mr. Chairman.
And I will note that Commissioner Pope has, Commissioner Navas has her.
Yeah, and just, you know, what I like about the commission is that we've got 3 elected officials, but I would characterize sometimes the people that actually know what's going on basically can carry the day if we get an elected official that just necessarily, or a group of them, that is totally against everything that is going on. And, you know, so I think that, you know, certainly representation of elected officials, but necessarily not a majority of elected officials or even a 50-50 split. This seems to be working really well, is my point. So basically don't mess with success, more or less. Yeah.
So I'm going to see Commissioner Pope and then Commissioner Navis. So
Okay, so I actually have an answer to some of that. Secretary of State's office already administers digital assets, so that was the consideration that we were looking at. And then the school, the superintendent of public education the school system is a beneficiary of of our proceeds right now. So that was the consideration in putting that person on the commission. If you're looking at an even number of commissioners total or board members total, the chairman would normally not vote unless there's a tie, and normally there won't be a tie if the rest of the board is odd. I mean, not odd as in odd people, but an odd number.
It is crypto.
So that's there was some thought process in all of this. And again, this is a beginning, and it needs to be fleshed out and refined. But we figured we'd start with that and then move forward in order to figure out what really makes sense as we move through the sausage making process of this bill.
thank you, Commissioner Bug. Commissioner Navis.
Thank you, Governor. I would just say, as we proceed to providing comments and recommendations to the bill, Anthony, that we have consultation with our counsel to ensure that there is nothing in there from a regulatory perspective that we should be considerate of. Obviously, these conversations with counsel are separate and apart from our public meetings due to confidentiality. So Anthony, just make sure that you also get guidance from our counsel through the Attorney General's office for anything that we want to think about, not only operationally, but also from a broader regulatory perspective. Thank you.
Commissioner Pope. Thank you, Commissioner Navis.
One of the biggest concerns I did have in this bill was that the board members and the commission members were the same, and whether that ends up being whether the stable token commission ends up being separate with one or two common board members or commissioners. I don't know what the final format of that will be, but the legal and regulatory side of it can determine or be a part of determining that, as Commissioner Navis says, whether we have to have a separate trust management group for the stable token or whether we can have common board members.
Yeah, and I guess I understand a lot of the sort of impetus for this, but I think it's really important that you start with what the essential functions are going to be. And as a regulatory body, I think you want to make obviously none of us want to grow government per se. But you also want to have expertise in the capacity and not a bias. And so I think it's important to think a little bit about how that essential task gets done. What I'm concerned about is sort of the inclusiveness of here are all the other people that we want to be involved, and the larger a committee becomes, the more dysfunctional it usually becomes. And then just sort of on the note that the treasurer, good Commissioner Meyer, mentioned, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So it doesn't mean there shouldn't be some adjustments, but I worry that in the concept of let's be more inclusive, let's be more grand in our notions, but let's also put a regulatory structure, and the people that are building into this are the people that know the most, so therefore we'll let them do it. It all seems a bit messy to me. And I think going back to how do we continue to make the stable token work better and grow organically as it should, and not try to jam too many things into the bag, and at the same time build that structure that not only people in Wyoming, but I think broadly people see as able to do a better job of regulating. And I really want to underline that, because I think what you're saying at a national level is a lot of whipsawing. And I think that puts more volatility into an already fairly volatile universe. And I think Wyoming has an opportunity here to be really thoughtful, be able to get things done, and do it in a way that's going to be manifestly much more functional.
So, Mr. Chairman, not seeing any other hands up, just a couple of things I would note. Again, I'm not expecting there to be a motion on this, although I would defer to the commission on this. This will be a kind of a consolidation of feedback on my side. That will be replayed to the select committee when we have that discussion. I think generally speaking, we could point to a couple examples of this, and it's already, to be very clear, somewhat self-identified in the staff notes that there are these conflations of structure or maybe of interest. Can replay the dialogue here as well, and make sure that will happen downstream of some work with the Attorney General's office to review it and see if they've got any particular structural concerns. But I think from an example perspective, what I'm seeing as through this bill is potentially some of the issues that the broader crypto sector had getting off the ground. There's no shortage of dialogue between, we're running this exchange, the SEC won't tell us what they're going to regulate, and that was under prior administrations. But really all of these organizations, not all these organizations, but a number of these larger exchanges calling for clarity that hopefully we are now getting. They were functioning as exchanges, they were functioning as broker dealers, they're functioning as custodians, and all of those things require different regulations, different registrations. And my concerns, I don't want to recreate some of the early difficulties of the crypto sector in our own bill by putting too much functionality in one place, especially if we're not going to have, like the stable token, we're kind of divorced from some of that, from some of the federal perspective. So from my mind, if this was to become manifest and we were going to take on a number of new responsibilities, and I think particularly this be around real world assets and tokenized gold and commodities, and we could certainly get in the weeds on that a little bit, but I would, as an individual person, not the person who may be participating in it or running the program, I'd want to see an organization working to tokenize gold on state land or whatever it happened to be, perhaps be overseen by a regulatory body with a broader set of commodities experience, because I don't have that, right? And I think, and this is where we start getting on the rabbit hole and all the permutations Commissioner Pope was talking about. If we're going to start to look at examples of like where we'd want to start splitting things up and we move from kind of the broad structural down to the specific implementations, having a real world asset program where we're simply just buying tokenized gold that's already in a vault somewhere, maybe a public-private partnership with an existing program is already regulated, versus, well, perhaps the maximal benefit from the state is us tokenizing resources that are in ground, but no one's ever done that before. So what does that body look like?
Right. No, I agree with you. And I'm brought back to a comment that Tony Blair made at a Milken conference some time ago, that what you got to watch out for is picking your coach in the middle of a soccer game. There's somebody that's really loud and has a bunch of ideas, but maybe they don't necessarily have the background. So I think that's all wise, and I'm hoping that we can put together some valuable comments for the committee, and more importantly, I hope they pay attention to them.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to do that. The one last thing, and not to belabor any of the points, I think this has been a very healthy and efficient dialogue. one thing, Mr. Treasurer, you brought up earlier on in the conversation that I meant to get to, and we went different, we zigged instead of zagging. Who's approving the actual members of the board in this model, right? Because there's delegates, and then per this version of the bill, there needs to be a approval process through the Senate. I'm not entirely sure what that would look like. And just to be clear on the wording, it's at 40-30. No, I don't know if that's right. Sorry. It's Big Bill. I haven't memorized this one quite as well as the stable token yet. But yeah, it's a Senate confirmation process.
So not to sort of hasten this along, but I think the model that Commissioner Meyer is talking about is actually a pretty good model that's been affected in New Zealand and others. It's what we built our IFC off of, which is the politicians get to choose who's going to be on a selection committee. And that selection committee then, on a basis of criteria that are explicitly in the statute, can choose from folks that meet those criteria. So, to your point, broader commodity expertise, some institutional background. Maybe, there, to me, there's value in really trying to drive to what those particular specialties should be, and that allows it to be somewhat insulated, somewhat responsive to, but somewhat insulated from sort of broad political concerns.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Meyer.
Just quick thinking this through. I'm thinking of two different separate units. The commission with some of the added flexibility or whatever in HR and in budget and other areas that we can look at, and then of course the selection committee that Mark the governor is talking about. But then on the other one, let's just have three of the electeds, the governor, and in this case the Secretary of State and Education, that would be on the commission. But to make sure that we don't have, I guess, runaway oversight, maybe have a supermajority as far as the commission telling the stable token commission or authority or whatever we're instrumentality, whatever we gravitate to. And that way you don't have a lot of conflict between both of them without, because I could see if you just had those two going back and forth and you had personalities involved, if you didn't have some kind of you'd have stalemate, necessarily bureaucratic stalemate. So you need to basically err on the flexibility and autonomy that you need in the stable token commission, but have that oversight, like on a supermajority. If they say, oh no, you've gone off the rails, well, you just can't have a majority say you've gone off the rails. You'd have to have a supermajority say you've gone off the rails. Then more likely than not, maybe you did go off the rails. So that's, I think that's clear lines. You don't have any conflicts of interest. You got different people on each one as far as the electeds, and you got clear different mandates about what the overall digital commission can do and what mandates what they can't do to the stable token commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. Commissioner Pope.
I want to finish my part of this conversation by just indicating that I understand that what we are doing right now, as far as the stable token commission, we are moving through the steps to make it as perfect of a system as possible. And I know there are lots of voices that say we should not make any changes right now or add anything to the plates, and I completely understand that. I want what we do to be done right. And I want us to develop a consistent product that becomes the best in the world. However, I also believe that we need to look 3, 5, 10 years down the road and see what changes are going to be made and need to be made in order to make sure that the state remains at the forefront. And if we are able to incorporate real world assets and other types of tokenization, we will be changing the entire financial structure of how a state operates and how it finances itself to the betterment of the state. And doing things like turning assets that are currently that currently the state holds that have no cash value or no and provide no cash flow, but just provide a drain on the state as far as in many areas, turning those into cash flowing assets. This is something that is dynamic and it will happen throughout the United States. We have to look forward to that 5 to 10 year period and begin to plan now, because as everyone knows, the legislature has to pass this in 2027. Then whenever it becomes effective, probably sometime that year, we have to wait until there's cash flow from this project in order to be able to expand the project. So we're already looking right now 3 years down the road before any of this can be realized. And if we're seeing the future in a 5-year time frame, we need to be ready for that. So no, I don't think we have to change anything immediately, or this bill would require any immediate changes to the way we do things in order to make sure we succeed. But we need to look forward to that future, try and anticipate it, and try and prepare for it. That's what this bill really does more than anything. It's a recognition that we're going to see these things. We're going to want to participate in these things. How do we best go about doing it? And again, that can take many forms. And I'm happy to promote requested changes to the select committee. Director Apollo will prepare a list of suggestions. I think we all need to have input in it. We need to address everyone's concerns, and we need to make sure that the bill that comes out of it is a bill that will actually do what I believe it should do.
Thank you. Further comment on this? Mr. Meyer?
Just
and Commissioner
quickly,
Meyer.
I see this as a nimble operation right now. I see what's contemplated in this as taking a nimble operation that can make decisions and putting it into a bureaucracy that is unwieldy and has 85 different tentacles of different things going on. So I'd like to keep, what is working good in this. And if we need to build that octopus for the future, that's fine. But I just feel that there's value in not doing much as far as massive overhauls of the structure. Essentially what you're doing is that you're trying to build the airplane while you're flying it. And you said, oh, well, let's all jump up and see if we can catch up to it and build another airplane. It just is this looks like we're having a contemplation about a lot of things, because we first have to make our first big deal, and we first have to get some contracts, and we first have to get this thing functional before I think we should even contemplate some of these other areas.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. As chairman, I sort of think we've got a number of things on the table that all will be valuable to commission or the select committee. If there's a new tact or a new issue brought up, I'm happy to hear it. Otherwise, Director, I think we can, I think you can capture this. And whatever you miss, I know staff will know. So, thank you all for the conversation, and for the points made. I think all valid points. Anything else? I see the auditor pointing like, get on with it. All right. Madam Auditor, thank you. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy to capture all of the feedback and then provide that during my testimony. So just keeping an eye on the clock, moving on to the last agenda item we have. This is the Commission Operating Structure Transition Memo. So we are now heading into BFY 27. As we discussed along the way, and I noted in the last dialogue, we are structured like an authority with the ability to take on some level of independence from typical state operations. What we've done here is, and this is something we've had a dialogue about as far back as February of 2024, when we were talking about structure and abilities and all of that. That's where we kind of made an early determination around being a component unit that's going to be reporting separately from the state. We are a component unit that will be reporting independently into the annual comprehensive financial report after the June 30th date. So what our team has done is tried to put forth a couple of motions that would help us operate independently, but still maintain kind of a controls environment and transparency in the state. We've looked at financial, legal, and technical. I will go through those in that order, starting the bottom half of page 1 from a financial perspective. Currently, our agency receives support when it comes to generating financial reports from the state's Department of Administration and Information, also known as A&I, particularly the accounting division. Reports come out of the WOLVS system, Wyoming Online Financial System, which is maintained by the auditor's office and essentially is the reporting tool for the dollars managed in the state agency pool by the treasurer's office. However, these funds in the state agency pool are commingled, so we can't do things like cash reconciliations on a monthly basis for any individual agency. And then with WOLVS, there's a limited ability to connect external reporting systems to intake data from other tools or third-party vendors. And rewinding our conversation just a little bit when we were talking about the budget and looking at what we had in WOLVS, some things are an expense there, but really should be considered an asset. Those types of asterisks are downstream of these types of limitations. So we now have financial feeds coming not only from our own expenses, but also from on-chain activities with the Frontier token and the reserves backing them, currently custody of fiduciary trust. This is something that we covered at a high level during our prior meeting, the last regular meeting of the commission, when the commission unanimously approved the recommendation to pursue a bid waiver for competitive negotiation of services with a limited number of Wyoming domiciled special purpose depository institutions so that we can establish an independent administrative account. And we do have a statutory ability to do that. Again, the SPDI is expected to custody both cash balances, potentially Frontier tokens, et cetera. But once we have those funds maintained independently by the commission, we look to use those funds to do our standard operations, right? Pay payroll, vendors, pay for the technology, et cetera. So bottom half of page 2 under request, we are seeking the ability to do several things. I will note that we've now had, again, behind the scenes, we've been maintaining our own books kind of in parallel for almost a year, since August of 2025, to make sure that what we are measuring and doing internally is at a minimum 1-to-1 with the state's expense reporting and other reports we get from there. So now that we have all of that done and built up kind of behind the scenes, we're looking to take several actions following the approval to do so by the commission. We're essentially requesting a formal delegation of authority from the commission to facilitate the following. One is generating a unique EIN for the commission, an employer identification number, separate from the Wyoming state. Again, there are agencies, particularly authorities, that already have that facility. As we discussed previously, deposit the BFY 27 operational funds, $4 million as appropriated in the budget bill, and an estimated $2 million carryover as permitted therein, to an administrative account independently maintained by the commission instead of the state agency pool. We would formally cease reporting in the Wolves financial system and generate all future reports from a third-party reporting tool utilized by the commission. We'd handle our own payroll in step 4, and we've already configured that in preparation. We would perform our own payment for employee benefits. The benefits plan would still be the state's benefit plan. We're not trying to instantiate our own. We would just be paying for it directly. And 3 agency resources, including myself, have been trained and onboarded to EGI for that purpose. And the final one, number 6, is to perform its own payment of vendor expenses to third parties engaged by the commission, either in US dollars or Wyoming stable tokens. The other 2 sections are much more breezy, but that's a lot. So I want to pause there and see if there are any questions either in the room or online.
Madam Auditor, Madam Commissioner Racinas, I'm trying to think of other examples of agencies that handle themselves like this, or is this unique?
This isn't necessarily unique. I think, sorry, Mr. Chairman. I think what is unique is that the authority initially came in with all these supports in place simply because there was no staff, and then there was only Director Apollo for some time. And now they are leaving the nest, whereas the other authorities that are similar but not the same, you know, the Lottery Commission, the Energy Authority, were more separate from the beginning. So I think the ultimate operating structure is not that unique. It's just that this one feels a little bit weirder since they were under us and now they're, like I said, leaving the nest. Each component unit does operate a little bit differently based on, you know, where we have like Energy Authority, which operates, completely separately, similar to what this ultimate structure will look like. And, you know, Business Council is a different example where they have the authority to be separate and have chosen not to be. So there's a little bit of a spectrum, I guess I would say, in terms of which state central services some of these component units opt to use.
Yeah, and Commissioner Ryan, I'll recognize you just a sec. Commissioner Racinas, I think, you know, one area I'm concerned about is, you know, whether, and I think it's in the last option about vendors, for example, being able to seek your own payments and vendor expenses, et cetera, you know, whether we're constrained by the same rules as govern the state, you know, which I think we're trying to figure a way to sort of minimize it's not make it more private or, you know, make it more select, but trying to figure out how to move a little bit more rapidly and not have so much sort of burden associated with it. And I know you're not an attorney, but I guess I'm kind of curious because this has been my primary concern about being an instrumentality of the state versus an authority. The Energy Authority, you know, if it goes upside down, that there's no challenge to the state. But others, you know, there's a liability that comes to the state.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and again, repeating that I am not an attorney, the statutes give the state auditor a lot of control in terms of these processes over agencies of the state. But my interpretation of those statutes, again, not an attorney, for the purpose of those statutes, the stable token commission does not meet that definition in those statutes. So by its nature of being a separate corporation or body politic, I do not have the same, and I don't like to use the word control, but that's accurate. I do not have the same statutory control over the Energy Authority, the Lotto Corporation, or the Stable Token Commission in the same way I have as, oh gosh, for example, if Department of Ag wanted to go out and say, we're not going to account in wolves anymore, I can say, no, you will. So that's sort of where we are. And again, it feels a little different since we have had them sort of under our wing for the last several years.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer.
You know, I kind of look at this. You take the WCDA, they get their revenue basically by selling bonds and getting I think it's a federal markup that they can get in those bonds, and that's what they do. Their pay for all their people and their business and everything. So essentially, the stable token is almost exactly the same. The stable token is almost exactly the same because they get revenue outside of the state structure. They get it from basically the revenue off of U.S. Treasury bonds, where in WCDA you get the revenue off of the spread between a tax-free bond that they issue and that in which they can actually put that into the marketplace in loaning for houses. So it's that disconnect, I think, in the revenue source that would allow, I think, the Stable Token Commission to operate pretty much exactly like the WCDA as far as the different areas of independence that they have in their budgeting process, in their hiring process, in basically in determining, who they hire, how much they pay, as long as they stay within that area of the overall budgetary cap that's associated with the instruments that they deal with.
And that's a great example, but it's also an authority. So, and I understand we're talking about a transition. I guess the motions that are contemplated here, I think are sort of a little bit of anticipatory of becoming an authority.
Well, to the chair again, and there we go. Yeah. Well, through the chair, I want to be specific. Just because we are called a commission, this is what I was referring to earlier about this lack of a bright line test. Just because we're referred to as a commission does not mean we don't have the same statutory construction as either the WCDA or the Energy Authority.
Yeah, I beg to differ. You're not an authority. You're
Okay.
a commission.
Okay.
But the statutory authority is constructed differently from the Energy Authority, constructed differently from WCDA. And that's precisely the point that the good senator from Laramie and I have argued for since inception on this.
Well, I also want to, I'll take that opportunity just to add one more note. I think one of the things that Commissioner Racinez brought up was around, controls and oversight. I certainly understand anytime we're perhaps deviating from standard state operations, those exist for a reason. And we are, pulling to a different environment, which wouldn't have perhaps the exact same oversight. But if just to put it back on, just to reiterate from the last conversation last month, the goal here is to move towards putting this budget eventually on, to point about some of the anticipatory stuff, putting our budget on a blockchain so that we can see in real time how many dollars this agency has and can see the spend in real time. We can also put analytics on top of it so that we can have day-to-day reporting about where dollars are going and any kind of deviations from standard operations. And this would really be the first agency in the world to have that. So while on one hand, we're perhaps deviating from standard operations in one capacity, we would be bolstering the operations and the transparency to a level that literally no one else has. No other government agency in the world has.
And I fully understand that and I support that. There are two aspects to this. One is what we're doing here, which we can do because we are nimble and we can see the value in that. The other one is having the legislature recognize that as well. Commissioner Pope.
For me, and I have been an advocate for treating ourselves differently for years now, as Director Apollo knows. Because of the nature of the industry and the flexibility necessary for us to keep up with the industry, whatever legal autonomy we can gain from the state infrastructure, I think we need to achieve that. That's my only comment on this. Whatever this commission decides, I looked at the legislation closely, and I promoted the legislation, and it looks closest to me like the lottery board. And the lottery board from the beginning, they stepped out, they got a loan, they started their own bank accounts, they did everything independently. I think the legislation was passed with that sort of model in mind. I think whatever we can do to push toward that autonomy, I will support. But we have to have the proper controls. We're working to make sure that happens. We have to have a commission that is flexible. We have to have a team that is that has that flexibility built in, with a mind toward the controls and making sure everything is done correctly. But whatever autonomy we can achieve, I think will benefit the program immensely.
And I don't have any argument with that. The reason why I started with the auditor is just to make sure that, there was some example of this. I would hate us to be down the road, and I see Commissioner Wallace, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you, but I'd hate to be down the road and somebody come back and say, wait a minute, you didn't do the RFP according to state processes. And we say, but we're independent. And they say, yeah, but you still have to adhere to state processes. I think you understand the vulnerability I'm concerned about. Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman Gordon. I guess I just had a question around the deposit of the operational funds into a Speedy Bank, and being that there would be no FDIC insurance, we would still require those to be completely pledged, or how do we handle those deposits?
So,
Director.
through the chair, and great question. So, while we have the approval to pursue a SPDI relationship, that would again be downstream of some of these reviews. One of the things that you're alluding to, bit of a TBD on whether that would be something that we would need the SPDI to do, or if having a tokenized deposit would move us outside of the realm of that restriction, because it would be fully reserved rather than rehypothecated out the system. So that is something that we are looking into actively before we move forward with the SPDI conversations. So one of the things that I should probably mention in here is we would look to tag on an account with a existing financial institution engaged by the state that has that capability, so we can maintain that one-to-one backing and over collateralization, just to have a cash account ready to go for us before we make a transition to anything that's more technically focused or any SPDI.
Okay, I guess that was my concern there, but so any fiat currency would be treated pretty much like any other state agency then.
Yep. Through the chair, Commissioner Wallace, separate account that we'd have more visibility into, but yes, with all the same controls and permissions and restrictions therein.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I'll note the Commissioner Navas has a hand up as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Wallace. Commissioner Navas.
No, thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Governor. It was just a follow-up to Jeff. Jeff, I don't think that this would change in any scope, any of the obligations that an SPDI has under this charter. And any treatment of the assets and the obligations that they have on fully reserved status, right? Which we know that by being fully reserved, they are able to safeguard those assets differently than FDIC insurance would, which is capped at a certain amount. But I don't believe that having that, obviously with advice of counsel, which I'm not for the commission, would be treated the same way as any other asset under the charter of the SPDI. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there follow-up, Commissioner Wallace, that you have, or?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And I totally understand the fully reserved, but at the same time, I think we need to make sure that we're specifically identifying those assets that are being pledged to cover our funds. Because I think being fully reserved versus having a joint custody receipt of assets specifically pledging our money would be different if it came down to bankruptcy situation or something like that.
Thank you, Director. Any comment?
Mr. Chairman, I would revert back to my prior comment, right? I think we're using existing state vendors and relationships that fit very well into what Commissioner Wallace is referring to. So we have all those protections in place. And then when we want to move to an SPDI, we'll need to do a bit more legal diligence on, again, tokenized deposits versus dollars in a bank. And we'll go from there. But for the immediate next steps, it would be just having an account with an existing institution.
Okay. Thank you. Well, further discussion, further comments? Any other points you want to make, Director?
So just very quickly, Mr. Chairman, just keeping an eye on the clock, noting we're already a few minutes over from a legal. So we're talking the financial side, and I'm glad we're having the dialogue because that's the biggest piece here. From the legal side, we're not really looking to make any changes, just it's on the page. So we have it. We will continue to be supported by the Attorney General's office. They are our legal counsel. We will continue to engage external third parties as necessary for any kind of supplemental advisement on digital assets, perhaps federal regulations, things like that may be kind of outside the scope of the typical state efforts. But I want to be very clear that that is not counsel for us. I know sometimes it gets referred to as external counsel. We try to be careful about the language. It's legal advisement from an external vendor. We are supported by the Attorney General's office. From the tech side, we are not looking to make any changes at this point in time. Again, a little bit of, like you said, Mr. Chairman, future-proofing. So again, anything that would be here is kind of either already done or will be a future exploration or endeavor. So we could kind of take it or leave it. But in terms of our support from the Enterprise Technology Services team, ETS, we already work with them on state issue technology services. So Google Suite is our email accounts, is Google Drive and storage. However, we are independent in our work on the stable token itself, the engagement of vendors that help us with the issuance, deployment, distribution, management of the stable token. We do our own code audits and things like that. So there's already some level of independence there. We expect to continue reliance on ETS for those standard functions, emails, domains, mobile devices, virtual private networks, network access. If we were to move towards anything, it would be facilitating, giving the commission the ability to purchase and manage our own software, hardware, cloud services, or SaaS tooling, utilizing commission processes. So again, if we wanted to bolt on some technology that we don't have and ETS might not have, just putting that through the normal procurement process. And then the second thing is we would like to, not asking for anything on this right now, potentially, but explore potential migration of the domain. We'd like to keep the wyo.gov domain for, I think, fairly obvious reasons. We do have wyo.stabletoken.gov. So one of the things I'd like to explore is if there's any efficiencies to be gained by having, let's say, our own email software, file storage, and things like that, that would have to be tied to a .gov domain. We have a subdomain. But I think, again, that's an exploration rather than a mandate because there's still some work to be done and we're still having some healthy back and forth with ETS on all of this. So.
Thank you, Director. Commissioner Racine has just one more question with regard to the ACFR and reporting considerations on the statewide audit. Any thoughts there?
Mr. Chairman, yes. And I think we've had a fairly long runway. I think I talked the good director out of trying to make this switch on January 1 of this year, recognizing the transition would go a lot better on July 1st. The stable token commission essentially will be reported in the ACFR the same either way based on accounting considerations and evaluations, regardless of whether they're in or out of WOLFs. But just doing this break at a fiscal year end will simplify it for both our auditors and for the network firm, who will separately audit and provide essentially a mini ACFR that is then incorporated into the state's ACFR.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one quick comment on that. We have been working very closely with the network firm to prepare for this. It will be the first GASB audit of a stable token issuer ever. So as we add to our stack of firsts, we will be doing this very methodically as we have in the past. I believe Joe is intending to get the first cut of even just preliminary the May GASB numbers as we would present them in a financial statement, annual financial statement at the beginning of next week, so they can start taking a look at that, and we can work with them through the processes even ahead of the 630 because we've got everything pretty much reconciled down to the penny on our side. Just a matter of making sure that the placement in any given statement is correct.
Thank you. Joe, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, all I would do is underline what Anthony has mentioned. We have a very robust reconciliation dashboard. I think I've shared it with the commission before. So we're pretty much tied up and reconciled to Wolves, to QuickBooks, and to all the other reporting that we have available to the commission and to the commissioners themselves.
Thank you. Further questions, further discussion?
Mr.
Commissioner Meyer.
I guess if we're going through these one through 6, I guess I'd like to have your thought whether or not we should proceed with a motion on those 1 through 6, or what you're kind of envisioning here as far as the action for the rest of the day.
Well, I would entertain motions either individually or if there's some that need to be tied, that's fine. I simply, my concern was just sort of fully enumerating the obligations that we have, I guess.
Right.
And I think we've moved towards this. I'm not wanting to, sort of slow it down or stall it out.
Okay.
So.
All right. Yeah. And I guess, can I ask the auditor a question whether she's got any particular heartburn on any one of these, or what's your thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, Treasurer, I'm trying to phrase this gracefully. There's always concerns when we're moving from a large behemoth, safe but system to go out on their own. So I have some concerns. I think I've mainly got comfortable with them. The other thing, and I've discussed all of these with Director Apollo too, my understanding is that this information will be very, very transparent eventually. But as of, July 1st, when they switch over, they won't, I won't know their expenditures anymore. Expenditures for the commission will no longer be out on Wyopen. Again, these are all in the same way that Wyolotto and the Energy Authority aren't either. So I guess I would answer that by saying I don't have any concerns about this that I don't already have about the other authorities.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Meyer. and then
Has there been any, I guess, inconsistencies that you've identified in those other authorities?
No, Mr. Chairman, Treasurer, there hasn't. In general, from time to time, I hear complaints about the transparency and public records process with some of those entities, not naming names, but just people that are off the state system. But again, I have everyone's assurance that we're going to sort of go above and beyond in terms of transparency on this.
Thank you, Madam Auditor.
Commissioner Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I need a little bit of clarification. Looks like items 1 through 6. Director Apollo would like within a year of parallel reporting. I may be misunderstanding that paragraph.
Mr.
And then,
Chair, let me just, Mr. Chairman, just Commissioner Pope, that we've already been doing that reporting.
okay,
Let's be clear on that. Yep.
okay, it's just listed under a request. So I don't know that we need anything for those 6 items, right? You don't need a motion for any of those 6 items yet, correct? Because I think that's what Commissioner Meyer was talking about. So like I said, I just need some clarification because it looks like all you need is under the director's recommendation, there are 3 items that would require motions. Is that correct?
Okay. So through the chair, Commissioner Pope, my recommendations, let's curtail these a bit. We would be seeking the motions on the financial side of things immediately. That portion around the year of financial reporting in parallel since August 2025 was just additional context under request to feed into the fact that we've been doing this already behind the scenes. So the conversion should be easy and controllable and transparent. I would note that the second motion here regarding the technology side of things, I think we probably skip that. It doesn't seem to me that we need to do anything right now. Again, we've been working with ETS and going back and forth, but I think we could do this exploration on our own and ask for overt or explicit approval on any kind of migration in the future when we have more data about it. And then the last one on here was about changing the cadence of these regular meetings to once every other month, which I did not find to fit into financial, legal, or technical, but wanted to float that amongst the commissioners, keeping an eye on the clock here. If we want to skip that as a motion and just have that discussion offline, we can do that too.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Pope.
Okay, so again, to refine it down, under the director's recommendation, you would recommend that we consider item 1 and the rest, if necessary, we can table until a future time, correct? Again, I'm trying to form in my mind what motions that we would need to make. And so if you have a different idea, I'd love to hear it.
To the chair, Commissioner Pope, are you referring to motion 1 or item number 1 in the financial request on page 2?
Mr. Chairman?
Please, Commissioner.
I am referring to page, what is that? 1, 2, 3. Under director's recommendation, you have 3 motions. You've discussed the first one as being something you'd like us to consider. Second one, you're saying, I believe that you just said that we could table for now. And then the third one, we can also table for now, which I would recommend that we table that one anyway, because we've got things to consider for the select committee meeting as well. So
So I'm thinking what I hear you saying, Commissioner Butler, asking is if we get the first one done, are we done today?
That is through the chair, Commissioner Pope. That is correct. Motion 1 encompassing points 1 through 6 is what we're looking for right now. The rest we can defer.
Okay, Commissioner Meyer.
That was exactly the clarification I needed. The enumerated ones are 1 through 6.
Correct.
And so the motion, Mr. Chairman, I'll just go ahead and make it that we, the directors, that we, I recommend the passage of the director's recommendation on number 1 for the authorize the executive director to perform the enumerated tasks 1 through 6 for the commission to begin performing its own financial reporting and management.
It's been moved, and the clarification would be under the items on request of this particular document.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is there support?
I would second that.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Pope. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Nays? Motion carries.
Thank you,
We can
Mr. Chairman. Keeping an eye on the clock here. It's already almost 11. Super quick, next steps, rulemaking. We'll talk public comments next time. Again, another reason to keep our July meeting on the calendar anyway, as well as the select committee piece. Although understand there may be some frontier days movement. And we'll also work to have those GASB presentations rather than the wolves, or maybe do a month of them in parallel and side by side them, go from there. In terms of upcoming meetings and events, the select committee will be, we will let you know when that gets rescheduled, where and when. Our next meeting, if we are not skipping, then it'll be July 16th here, same time, same place. August meeting is August 13th. I will defer to you, Mr. Chairman, on whether, given the time constraint, we have the ability to do public comment. If we do, duration will be limited to 3 minutes per speaking party or 1 question from an online participant. And we'll have the standard decorum and ask for first name, last name, and affiliation, but I will defer to the commission on that.
Do we have anybody? We have one person. I'll recognize the one person. Please, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. This is Jan Hansen, live in Sheridan, Wyoming, and I've been a follower of this the stable token for, well, since inception, actually. So I have like 4 questions, and I know I won't have time for all that with the time limitations. But let's see. I was reading the attestation report, Director, and it looks as if you've lost money from January to June. Can you do you have a report on what the return on investment is thus far with your stable token? That's my first question. And then the second question is, was there a bill approved recently that, or an amendment to the statute probably is a better way, that would reduce the number of reserves, the amount of reserves required by SBDIs? And then also I can email these to you, Director, if you'd like to, when I'm all done, if you don't want to take the time to answer them, but I did want to speak them out. Also, you've requested that you can, an amendment that you would be able to accept donations and gifts to the stable token. How does that work? How's that a donation? What are you going to use those funds for? And then my comment is, wouldn't you be better off spinning this off to a privately held entity, since you don't seem to want to work under the government state authorities? You want to have your own authority now. Wouldn't you be better off just becoming a private entity and using those donations to fund your private entity instead of public tax dollars? That would be my final comments.
Mr. Chairman, we've got about
Thank you.
75 seconds on the clock. I'm happy to respond to Ms. Hanson. Thank you for the questions. One is redemption. We did not lose any money. we did have a redemption, I believe early last week. We did cover off earlier today on the kind of contraction in the digital asset sector. So that's not surprising, but again, we are still getting off the ground here and looking to scale up in the coming months. So that is the plan. And then just in response to the rest of your questions, reducing the amount of SPDI reserves. This body does not govern nor oversee special purpose depository institutions. That was part of the legislature and their the SPDI amendments. I believe that was Senate File 0051. I could go back and double check that for you. But regarding the SPDI reserves, that is not our commission's job nor position. That is the legislature. In regards to accepting donations, that again was a amendment to the Stable Token Act granted to us through this legislative session. We have not accepted any donations at this time. If you were to look at the rules that are now posted on our webpage and are up for discussion, that is where we are talking about how we actually handle the donations instead of just boilerplate accepting them. And then in regards to spinning off to a private entity, I think a lot of the dialogue here is about what we can do as a government agency, maintaining controls, maintaining transparency, and being a beacon to others of how to do that, while providing funds for the state as a public good. Right now, if you look at those attestation reports, I think we've generated about $26,000 of interest income already. That would be dovetailed to that end.
Very good. Thank you. There's nothing more. Appreciate it. Thanks very much for your comment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you.